I've wanted to make this video for like months, but this chap uploaded a video on YouTube and it's kind of created the catalyst to spawn this video. There's this thought process or this thing that you cannot trust any reviews posted on YouTube of any kind of product, cars, whatever. And it seems to be peddled by many people who will still read online reviews in the form of written word, but just don't want to assume that any kind of visual review is correct. And essentially, this chap in this video says that all of the reviews that he sees are just people being positive for absolutely no reason, hyping up a product because they want to stay in the good graces of the companies that make them or the PR teams that work for the companies that make them. And this seems absolutely nuts to me. He says that anyone who's overly praising a product to basically be creating a BS review, and that any review that has some level of criticism in it must be a no BS review. Because as you all know, there was a controversy with Marques Brownlee recently about the overly positive. Oh wait, no, that wasn't the case, was it? What was he doing in those controversial reviews? Pointing out the flaws in several products actually. So not sure where this guy is looking for his YouTube reviews. The chap also went on to say that if you are given a product, you are more likely to put out a positive review because one, you've been given the product or lent the product, and two, you want to stay in the good books of the company. Now, I kind of find this nuts. And now I can understand his reasoning, and I'm not saying there aren't any rubbish reviews out there. Of course there are. It would be naive to think that there weren't. But also, I would say that you're actually more biased if you bought a product, because you have your own little level of, I've bought the product, I don't want to look stupid by saying I have misspent my money and aren't going to get that money back. Just seems a little bit of a counterintuitive argument. You know, many of us have been in this review industry for over a decade now, and we built our careers up saying the truth and saying if something's bad, we call it bad. We call a spade, as the phrase goes. So it's just a little bit annoying when someone pops up and says, you can't trust these YouTube reviewers, because it's like, what? To be clear, every company I've ever worked with, every company that has ever sent me something to review has always been kind and polite about if I say something bad about the product. There was only one time that a company didn't like it, and it was a long time ago, and I've never worked with that company since. I'm not going to say who they are, but what I will say is that this whole idea that if you say something negative, the company will block you forever is utter nonsense. It might happen sometimes, but in my 5-6 years of in industry reviewing and then 5-6 years out of industry reviewing, that's never been the case for me. And again, just because it hasn't been the case for me, doesn't mean it's not the case for anyone else, but I have not heard of that very often. And the whole thing behind the word bias is quite interesting because everyone has their inherent biases, don't they? I mean, some people like small phones or big phones. Some people, when they're talking about cameras, might like a certain color profile and some might like a different one. There is subjectivity to a review. Now, there's a very good article published by Vlad Savov on The Verge many years ago about the HTC One A9, and it was a completely objective review. And it's basically saying stuff like, it's made of metal, the screen is 5 inches, stuff like that. Because you have to kind of be a bit subjective in a review. It's always going to have to come out like that. Otherwise, you're just basically reading a spec sheet. If you want complete objectivity, go read a spec sheet. Don't watch or read a review. And I think the whole idea of this chap saying everyone wants to stay in the company's good graces means that he's probably not surrounding himself with the kind of company that you would want if you were a reviewer and doing things a little bit more objectively and trying to look at things in a critical but also a meaningful way. I feel like if every review you've ever seen recently is of things that are really positive, maybe you need to just stop looking at those reviewers and looking in that section. As I said, Marques, biggest reviewer on the planet, has been in controversies over negative reviews. Like, what are you talking about? And I don't know this guy, you know, he might be just a little bit burnt out. It honestly does sound like he's a bit burnt out, and fair enough. Like, I get that. I've been burnt out so many times. I mean, recently I just did a video saying, not sure I really care anymore. So, you know, it'd be completely hypocritical of me to say, you know, maybe just slow down without also slowing down myself. But there is also the side of just because you critique a product or just because you call something bad, it doesn't make you any more no BS than someone who overly praises a product. A really good skilled reviewer knows when to call out good things and bad things and doesn't just blanket something unless it's really warranted. It's very anecdotal, I know, but I have called out, you know, my favorite phone at the moment is the OnePlus 12. It's the one I daily, and I've put in many videos that I don't like the curved sides, not because, you know, they don't look cool, but because I've had phantom touches. And I've had people in the comments of almost all the videos that I've mentioned that in going, why do you hate these curved sides? This is absolute BS. Why are you saying these things that are not true? And it's like, it doesn't really matter which way you go, whether you overly critique something or overly praise something, you're going to get people who disagree with you. You're going to get people who dislike you. And because it's the internet, because there's no, you know, me ability to go give them the RTS, you know, 1-2, they'll say whatever they want on the internet. It doesn't matter. And I think going on to the conclusion now, there's a real lack of critical thinking. This is something I've spoken to many people about recently. A lot of my best friends, it's just like no one seems to have this ability to just tell when something is from a good primary source or when something is just clearly rubbish. They don't have the ability to watch something and go, yes, I valued that set of opinions, but I'm going to go and think about this myself or watch more reviews and really just build a bigger picture. This isn't something that loads of people seem to do. I don't know if it's a Gen Z thing or if it's, I don't get it. But ironically, if you check the guy's comments, it's just everyone going, yeah, totally agree with you. So, you know, I don't hate this guy. I don't know really anything about him, so I can't give you an objective or subjective review. But, you know, he posted this video and it just kind of, I took it to heart a little bit as someone who's been in the industry for so many years, because you can't just blanket everyone with saying everyone's a yes man, because there are many of us out there that aren't. In fact, the biggest reviewer in the world is clearly not a yes man.